Hi guys, welcome to another episode of this podcast. And today my guest is Stephen Thomas. Stephen is founder and CEO of Halo Advisory, and recently during the COVID, he's been doing a lot of good work with the commercial real estate and some financial side of things, and helping out a lot of people. Welcome to the podcast, Stephen. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Gurmeet.
Okay, you're welcome. So tell us a little bit about Halo Advisory. What do you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Halo Advisory is a management consulting company
Mm-hmm.
where we specialize in commercial real estate and commercial lending
Okay.
is our practice area. And really what we do is we help business owners and business and commercial real estate owners secure lending from the commercial
Mm-hmm.
lending financial system. So whether you're a business owner or a real estate operator, you're probably going to require some kind of financing and have to deal with a commercial bank.
Mm-hmm.
Halo Advisory is a team of former commercial banking professionals, so 75 plus years of
Awesome.
experience combined. So
Mm-hmm.
we left the corporate banking world and we help business owners deal with the banks
Mm-hmm.
um, to secure financing.
So you probably one of that industry that during this COVID, you guys probably extremely busy. What's going on out there with the COVID, especially small to medium-sized businesses or office spaces in Toronto. If you can give us a little bit overview of what do you see challenges out there with the businesses right now, what they're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to all the frontline workers and everyone who's been on the front lines battling COVID-19 pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, we're sort of the unsung heroes of the COVID pandemic. Financial services was deemed essential.
Mm-hmm.
And what really happened on the business, as the world knows, businesses really got impacted. Commercial real estate really got impacted. So my niche practice area of commercial lending,
Mm-hmm.
commercial real estate was extremely impacted. We've had our busiest year in the pandemic, and we never had a break. We still haven't had a break.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our friends in some industries were able to get some time off and stay home for a month or two. But literally from the start to now, we continue to be I would call it oversubscribed is
Mm-hmm.
is what
Yeah.
the Canadian financial system
Mm-hmm.
experienced, I believe, in the pandemic. So that's a little bit of the environment where we're working in today.
So everybody needs your help. The current situation out there. Considering that impact of COVID. Business owners had a big offices, or they had a decent sized facilities where they some of them just can't keep anymore, or they're looking to downsize. How you been help? What your team has been doing during this pandemic and helping our business leaders to deal with some of those situations where they have to scale down, or they have to just get out of the lease, or find the building, or they simply just can't keep up with it.
Absolutely. I think with the first thing, when the first wave hit, we're now in the third wave, but when the first wave hit, we truly were oversubscribed. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember some lenders had a permanent out of office on their outlook, just literally said, we are oversubscribed and we hope
Mm-hmm.
we can get back to you sometime in the next 2, 3. We don't know what we'll
Yeah.
get back to you.
Yeah.
So it really made us essential as the financial intermediary. So we decided that, what, we actually couldn't even do all of the business that we were getting.
Mm-hmm.
One, there was no lending available. No one knew how to lend in a pandemic before.
Yeah.
And two, we just couldn't handle all the files. So we
Mm-hmm.
actually pivoted into our advisory mode,
Yeah.
and we just started giving away our contacts. We said,
Mm-hmm.
look, you know what? We can't even do this business. And
Mm-hmm.
are literally businesses, real estate, buildings, people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Families, communities that need help. So we just put out a message. Anyone who needs help getting in touch with their bank, getting
Mm-hmm.
advice on financing, navigating any of the programs, just give us a call.
Mm-hmm.
We did our best to get some marketing out there, just explaining it. The feedback was really, really good. And
Mm-hmm.
we just got overwhelmed with more calls, and we just really just started becoming like, we started connecting people with bankers
Mm-hmm.
and hoping that, we'd build a lot of good karma in the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
and, help a lot of business owners. So that's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And the advice we started giving to everyone was, look, we can't do business as if there
Mm-hmm.
was never a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we did, like my entire life, your entire life, you never contemplated the
Yeah.
impact of a pandemic on your business, your financial planning, whatever services. So so really this is sort of a great opportunity for everyone to just say, look, either we adapt and thrive, right? First, we have to survive the pandemic. And what we noticed right away was there were some industries that were thriving, like best years ever. And that was a bit of a surprise, but understandable. And then we saw everyone else trying to figure it out. And really the people who learned how to adapt quickly were the ones who started thriving right away in the pandemic, and everyone's kind of chugging along. But if you continue to try to do the same things you did pre-pandemic, those are the stories that don't have a happy ending as some of the others. So the key was just being nimble, adapting your business, and then really taking this time to figure out how you can come out of the pandemic in a better position. Like, what lessons did we learn in the pandemic that we can actually permanently apply to our business that's made us more efficient or more profitable post-pandemic, and actually capture potential new market shares or opportunities coming because of the pandemic. So that's been a pretty consistent advice piece we've been giving all pandemic. And it's like, look, we can't fix your problems. We can just help you pick up the pieces and adapt, right? Can't go back. We can only go forward. So that's what we've been up to mostly with the advice.
That's what I'm hearing from a lot of business leaders as well. Pivoting business, based on what you're facing right now, the challenges that upon us, and they're looking for pivot. How do you pivot out of this? I think that's been very critical for a lot of businesses, right? If you have a choice to pivot, there could be some businesses just it's not optional for them. It's just not a choice, right? So. What kind of inquiries you are getting when you were, getting a lot of inquiry from businesses? You mentioned that. What kind of inquiries usually, make up the whole list?
So I laugh because there's a funny joke that happened to us. I actually wrote an article about the SEBA and the CERB loans, and we were covering all the government programs as they came out. And somehow we must be the #1 hit for SEBA Loans Canada, because there were months, I kid you not, I got literally over 8,000 phone calls. And I would get the Google Analytics every month and say, congratulations, you've been found. #1 search result, SEBA loan, CERB loan, government loan. So it was a necessity. But I think the advice that we've been getting is like, first, there's operating procedures for business. So everyone has to understand, what are the leaders in my industry doing? What are the new protocols, whether I'm a chiropractor, daycare, a mechanic, what are my operating protocols? What do I need to first master so I can start generating revenue again? Some industries have very clear guidelines, some industries not so much. And just kind of figuring out just the basics, like operating procedures again, your PPE plans, and then from there we can assess where's the opportunity. But if you can't get the fundamental basics down to just open your store, then you're gonna, be stuck kind of in the pandemic mud.
So what do you see in a downtown area? In a big building, people have a big office spaces in a building. A lot of those places are closed simply because you just can't go in elevators more than 1 to 2 people. So there's so many precautions there, health and safety reasons, for right reasons. What do you see? How these people are pivoting their businesses? Are they trying to scale down, or are they trying to move out of downtown areas? What do you see? How they're pivoting those big office spaces downtown?
Yeah. So I think no matter who you are, every human on the planet, every business was impacted. Even the wealthiest of the wealthiest was impacted, and the poorest of the poor was impacted. So I think this has given everyone a chance, or every business a second, to kind of take a step back and say, what are our space requirements now and in the future, right? But the thing that, there's a lot of noise, I think, on the office segment. But from my experience, because we also do a little bit of insolvency work where we represent borrowers that are in insolvency proceedings with their commercial lender, and we just try to help them avoid actually filing and maybe just restructuring their financing. But what we're seeing is, most of these insolvencies are down. Like, people are not really going out of business, and most of these offices that are empty, it's really the landlords who are impacted because the companies are still operating. Like I'm in my home office now. So, if Halo Advisory had a huge office downtown, we're still carrying that cost, sure, but we're still generating revenue. My employees are still able to operate. So I think from that perspective, the businesses, generally most office tenants continue to pay rent right throughout. There wasn't a lot of, oh, my office tenant didn't pay me. It was a lot of my retail tenant didn't pay me, or my hospitality tenant didn't pay me, and my restaurant tenant is having challenges. But the office segment, I think there wasn't a huge default rating on the payments. Some were, right? Some smaller companies had to shut down, but I think it was mostly in the retail segment where you saw more of that. Office, we just went virtual. So now where the office segment downtown, I think, and there's a recovery underway. And from all intents and purposes, we think most, I think a lot of it goes with the school system, but when most employers think that they're going to be fully returning back to the office place is sort of the market sentiment. And it's really, to your point, how much space do they need? Do they need more now or do they need less now? But I think that will naturally resolve itself because people are always going to need office space regardless.
Do you see adjustments, even we go back to offices, or even it's a hybrid situation where some staff working from home, some working from office, even we go in that way. Do you see any adjustment going on in the market? In an office space site, where people thought I need a space for 100 people. Now I don't need for 100 people, I need for 50 people because 50 is going to be hybrid all the time. They're going to be working from home. You see adjustment there, or also PPE stuff. There's a mandated that people have to be offices has to be restructured again, where you have to sit 2 meters apart from each other, so they have to readjust the office spaces. Do you see adjustment in an office market space after this COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's already happening now. It's I think from the downtown market specifically, it's the high rise office asset that's going to be the most impacted. And that really comes down to the ability to even get people up those elevators. I think, 6 at a time or 8 at a time, it's going to take half the day just to get people up the elevator. So from that perspective, I think you have to consider the hybrid model. Our company has gone to the hybrid model. I actually said to myself, like, it was madness how I did business before. I would drive around 6-8 meetings in a day, driving. It was just extremely unproductive. And I think, our policy is going to be moving forward. Like, there's a certain point where the face-to-face meeting occurs, but the pandemic has taught us it's not necessarily necessary. And we can do more business and be more efficient as a company doing a lot more virtual. And I think a lot of small and medium-sized companies are going to adapt that because of the work-life balance of their employees. And I think this just proved that you don't need to be at the office every single day. And then 2, I think there's the benefits of working in that office environment. I think it'll stabilize. So what you'll see is some companies like mine, smaller, will just downsize, and that will actually free up the space for larger companies to expand. So that should there be another COVID 20, 22, 25, then they already have the space and the protocols and the systems in place that they can say, okay, half of you virtual, essential staff only. And I think, future pandemics will be much better prepared for. And that's where the decisions and the business planning that's made today will be critical. Because just because we get out of COVID-19 doesn't mean COVID-20 won't come 6 months later or 50 years later. We don't know, right? But the fact is, we're now humanity has to be prepared for these events, no matter what, and in business.
Do you think it makes us more productive or less productive? There's always different opinion on that. What are your thoughts on? We don't have to drive to office. You're not waiting in elevators if you're working from home. Do you think that makes it more productive or a little less productive? I know we missed social part of it.
Yeah, I think it depends on the industry. It depends on the industry because, me, I personally love it. I can work 18 hours a day and still get my 6 hours of sleep that my body requires. But others, don't, right? So some people will burn out very quickly in that type of environment because you start working more, you don't realize it. So I think from an employer's perspective, productivity is up, but then from an employee's perspective, productivity could be down. You end up working more hours and less productive. So I think it's hit or miss, but depends on the industry.
It's everybody have to adjust. We have to pivot. Whatever we were doing before, it's just not the norm anymore. And it was interesting, the story you talk about. If you can talk a little bit about that, this hotel you were helping out in a Brampton area. Looks like they needed help from you, and you were able to get them out of the trouble. Last few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of hotel owners actually are facing the same decision, and that was just a culmination of just having the same conversation repeatedly. Whereas there's no appetite for lending to a hotel. So a big thing that we've actually been doing is just kind of looking at the repositioning or the redevelopment of asset classes that have been impacted as a way to continue to move forward, right? I think opportunity costs are probably one of the most expensive things in business, and sitting still is just so expensive. So we convinced them that, based on sort of the official city plan and sort of all of the gentrification happening, there were some literally across the street residential condo developments going up. So again, taking a step back and saying, look, why don't we redevelop this asset as a residential instead of a hotel? I know it's not your normal business, but it's still a building and it's still construction. We turned just basically not a challenging situation, but a fairly decent challenging situation. Like this one was stable, but stuck, right? Like we couldn't redevelop it. And a lot of those people. So the thing that I've noticed is that, when the pandemic hit, there was a lot of risk and a lot of people and challenges. But there's also a certain segment that we actually serve in the commercial sector, right? Being a commercial company, that, a lot of these people that weren't impacted still had financial plans that they were implementing. So while the world stopped, those plans needed to continue. And it was very difficult to continue those plans when the financial system was overexposed. So now continuing on, like repositioning, pivoting, redevelopment, these are ways that we're advising clients that you can continue to do it. You have to step out of your comfort zone a little bit, and try a different type of project than what you've built your generational wealth on. But that is one of the viable solutions that highly impacted sectors are using.
But that's a big change, Seven, from running a hotel and running a condo. Was it just a paperwork change, or did they have to change a lot of the way they were, the rooms were designed, or did they have to do a lot of construction work? How big was change for this person to get through this trouble? To me, I'm not expert on hotels or condos, but looks like from the surface is a big change the way we run a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So on a redevelopment project, there's two ways that you can look at it. You'll either keep the existing built form and build up, or expand, or reposition inside. Like you might leave everything as is, and then make the units legal, non-conforming, and kind of reduce some HVAC, electrical, or whatnot. Or in this case, they actually applied for higher density.
I see.
So we would be knocking this one down and building up either like a huge, massive 30, 35 story tower, or putting up multiple towers at the end of it. But the point is, like, the way that works is it's zoned, it's approved for one use, and this use has now been impacted by the pandemic. And the definition of insanity is keep asking someone to finance a hotel in COVID. And we said, but the way, development, like land development works, is you can actually rezone that and say, you know what, we don't want to use it as a hotel anymore. We want to use it as an office building. We want to use it as an apartment building. We want to turn it into a mixed use, retail, residential. We change the use. If you've sort of, accumulated this massive portfolio, $100 million family, or developer, or even you have one hotel or four hotels, but all is hotel. So to start thinking, well, I'm not going to do that anymore, and I'm going to do an apartment, I'm going to have tenants and a lease and do a whole different operation. It's simpler, right, to do residential, but it's still a big change, right? Because then you're looking at it, well, my returns are lower. So it's not right, but it's risk adjusted. It's stable, it's steady, and when it's impacted, you're still able to continue, right? So that's where I go back to opportunity cost being the most expensive thing. But yeah, so we'll help with the feasibility. So you kind of show them the numbers. Look, if you did a hotel here, but if you did a residential, it actually kind of works out to the same because you're doing a much bigger project versus higher operating income on a hotel. But
but it's a survival mechanism. At least you survive in a business, and at least and good on you guys. Thinking out of the box and trying to figure out different ways of keeping the business getting through the COVID. I mean, that's the kudos to you guys that at least the business survived, through the whole pandemic.
Well, that's what we get paid for.
Yeah.
Right. If you wanted to, if you wanted to think in a box, you just kind of walk into the boxy sort of institutions, right? That we still rely on. But the thing is, I always say, like, in commercial lending, it's not the bank's job to tell you how to do your deal. It's the banker's job to fit your deal into their policy. So where we fit in is saying, well, we know their policy is this, and we know your deal is that. So let's actually fit it before you go in. And that's really, so it is my job to literally think outside of this box, or to know which box to put my client in. Whereas in the pandemic, or even before the pandemic or after the pandemic, the history of commercial lending is clients just say, well, I'm just going to put my deal with the box that I know, and I've been with this box for 20, 30 years, but literally sometimes it's just not a fit. And that's where you get, and in a pandemic, it's even harder to even get through to any kind of lending environment. So, but things are much better now, I would say. Like, I'm pretty proud of our financial system to say, like, when COVID first hit, commercial lending, my entire business stopped. But now we're, a couple of weeks into our third lockdown, our third wave, and I'm still doing deals. I'm still lending. The world doesn't stop, and we've come a very long way from this time last year. So from that perspective, I think we're going to get through this as an economy. So.
What would you recommend business owners who trying to, still trying to pivot? They got through first two waves and a third wave. Not only they're planning for waves, they also have to get back to revenue levels after this whole thing, settles down a little bit. What do you recommend? What should they consider, in terms of the office spaces? What can what do they should start paying attention to as they're planning to scale up their businesses again and trying to get a momentum again? What would you recommend? How they look at the office spaces or just general business?
Yeah, so I think from my side, like, what we did as a company is we said, you know what? So what the big buzzword is in finance right now is tail risk, right?
Yeah.
And a tail risk is an event that comes after an event that was never even contemplated, but it just, because COVID hit, then all risks came out that we hadn't even contemplated. And they didn't come in COVID, they're actually going to come after COVID. Which really are, the permanent changes in the way we work and live because of COVID. Like, I don't know if I can ever, like, I'm a married man, but if I tell my single friends, like, I don't know how you guys are gonna, kiss, potentially again, right? It's just a permanent change to my brain now of how I think of saliva and spit, and even shaking hands and even giving a hug that I always did, right? I'm always going to probably buy sanitizer. So that industry may now permanently boom, right? I may permanently avoid certain food markets now, and that industry and that commercial real estate and that space may be impacted. So I think for any business owner coming out of this pandemic, you're really going to have to think about, what are the tail risks of my industry? What opportunities were created because of my industry? Whether it's, a curbside pickup or a delivery or some virtual app, or like in my business, I realized, well, when the commercial banks stopped lending and the private lenders stopped lending, well, as a brokerage, as a finance company, I should have my own capital. So we raised capital in the pandemic so that should this ever happen again, or we're unable to place a deal, we can lend it directly. And that was something we were very excited about, and we're going to be rolling out post-pandemic. I don't necessarily need it now because we're still lending, but that was an opportunity that I saw for us to become a real, like a leader in our industry. So I think for any business owners, just kind of sitting like, you know what was the most painful thing for my business, for my industry that we had to deal with when we were all thought we were, the world was gonna end. And is there an opportunity for me to serve that need and monetize it, now or post-pandemic? And I think that's probably what every company should be doing, getting out of the pandemic.
Yeah, a lot of companies, that's one of the great point you mentioned, that looking for opportunities. Look at companies who embarked on opportunities. Amazon or other companies during this pandemic, they scaled up quite a bit. So that's a great point. They have to look for opportunities, definitely to scale up. What are your thoughts on? Sorry,
you know what? I'll give you an example. I had a couple of alcohol manufacturers that we were working with. With their concept. And they were a startup phase, so they weren't selling, like crazy. They were on a startup, but the pandemic hit, and they converted those facilities to start making hand sanitizer. They're making 10 times the income they made pre-pandemic. I'm not sure if they're ever going to go back to the alcohol business. So that was interesting too.
Yeah, there's a lot of business I know they pivoted to for PPE products. I know one restaurant and one they pivoted to making sanitizer. It was restaurant, they converted to making sanitizer or gloves or those kind of products. Yeah, that was very common. And people embarked on opportunities like that. They stayed very well.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you see technology playing a role in this pivoting? A lot of that, remote people working remotely, or delivery systems, or a lot of that is technology focused. Do you see technology playing a role in pivoting your space?
Yeah, absolutely. Like from, we actually might, if you go to haloadvisory.ca right now, our website is down because we had to revamp it. I did zero marketing pre-pandemic, but I didn't even think of it as marketing. It's actually just engaging my audience, right? So just kind of like syncing my website to my database and my email marketing. And that our entire back end, we had to revamp our CRM. We just weren't equipped for like the oversubscription that we got. We were just kind of chugging along. It's a decent company, and then boom. So we had the largest pipeline we had, and we had to really invest into our own technology. And I can only imagine, like across every business, there, just like the retail sector, the Uber Eats and the delivery apps, and even just being able to do a curbside order pickup. We're starting to see a lot of these tech companies access small and medium-sized companies who don't have the solutions and saying, look, post-pandemic or in the pandemic, this is the new norm. And I think every business is going to have to revamp and sort of look at their technology operations to enhance profits moving forward out of the pandemic. For sure.
So where you see your team or your company's been helping more businesses, even a few months down the road, where you see that, what kind of requests coming towards your way to helping our businesses, and where you want to focus on, what area of problem you want to focus on to help business leaders?
Yeah. So you know what, like I'd say pre-pandemic, we were known. So pre-pandemic, we were actually just a pure management consulting company, and I held the mortgage license for our team. Now through the pandemic, because we raised the capital, I actually had to get a brokerage license so we can lend the money ourselves. So I think post pandemic. Sorry, the question you said, I lost the question there.
What kind of help you think coming your way? What is coming your way? Where you want to help people more? Yeah.
Got it. So I think from our side, like post-pandemic, we want to be lending a lot more versus going to the market because there's still good capital. So like we think for every borrower, there's a loan out there. But I think when, unfortunately, what we experienced in this pandemic the most, more than any time in our professional careers, a lot of lenders were like, no, right? Not doing that loan, not taking that risk. So I think, and then before we were lenders, we didn't have any money to lend. So we couldn't help a lot of people. So I think post-pandemic, like we want to be doing more of those direct lending deals ourselves for borrowers. But I would say like pre-pandemic, we were like sort of the high leverage, super sophisticated corporate structure finance consultants, because, sophisticated deals need sophisticated people to put them together. If it was simple, then you probably wouldn't work with us. You just do it yourself or work with your bank. But when you got, 10 companies in an org chart, or even 3 companies with, thousands, hundreds of thousands of feet of commercial real estate, or even tens of thousands of feet of commercial real estate, it can get quite complex.
Yeah.
So what I noticed right away in the pandemic is the growth opportunities just almost completely evaporated. And it was a lot of refinances, and I need to access my equity, and I just need cash. But now, a year and a bit into the pandemic, we've seen the return of new businesses starting. Like, our startup business completely died from from March to about September. And it was like, wow, like, what's gonna, and then you saw all the other businesses closing. So I was like, wow, there's gonna be a lot of vacant space. But then suddenly they hit this number of like vacancy, like closures and then boom, all these startups started happening again. So we're actually doing a lot of growth, a lot of expansions. We're seeing doing some M&A, where we're seeing some consolidation, and we're financing one dental practice, buying another. And we're starting to see some chiropractors expanding. Some people are buying their building. So they're like, you know what? My landlord lost some tenants in this plaza, so I'll make an offer, because I was okay. So we're starting to see a lot of growth activity again. And I hope that, we're either direct lending, some of these guys who there's no solution. So we found a certain segment of this market got left behind, where there was no government lending for them. Like, the 40,000 wasn't enough. They didn't qualify for enough on the B cap. So I hope that we're able to start to do some more direct lending to that segment, who truly just need time for their industry to come back. They're not bad companies. They're just in an impacted industry. And I hope to do more growth lending going forward, where we're seeing like people buying buildings again. Because again, like even last year, I'd say from March to probably July, August, it's mostly refinances, not a lot of purchases. And on those refinances, I remember distinctly, we're all being impacted because there were no comparables in the market, because no one was buying anything, because no one could get financing. So it's a bit of a dead market. So just more of the growth and more direct lending, I think, is what we want to be doing.
Do you guys get into a new development as well, a new construction, new development, or is it just a refinancing and dealing with the current infrastructure?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. So that's what we're doing in Brampton, right? So we're going to probably knock that building down and redevelop it right from the start. So a new development. We've done low rise, mid rise, high rise. We're, again, like pre-pandemic, I think everyone in our industry tends to do low rise, mid rise, high rise. But where we really stood out, again, where we did a lot of gas stations, retirement homes, hotels, banquet halls, construction, ground up construction, and refinances. But like, yeah, we do a lot of that stuff. Sure.
Any areas, especially, you guys stick with, or is it all over Southern Ontario? What are your thoughts on any particular area that you guys are interested in? Yeah, so we're actually national. So I've done deals from as far west as Dawson's Creek, British Columbia, so as far east as Stephenville, Newfoundland, and everywhere in between, Alberta, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick. Yeah, we've done a lot. Yeah, so we're a national firm. I see. Where do you see difference in the real estate market in Ontario compared to other provinces? What are your thoughts on the differences in the financial side of things? Any key differences you can share? You know what? That would probably be another show on itself, but I think it's just that it's crazy. It's the provincial regulation of the pandemic is just hit or miss, right? From province to province, because every province is dealing with it so differently. I remember we were at one point in the second wave, New Brunswick was shutting down because there was 500 cases a day in the province. And I was like, oh my God, like I want to move there. Like, we're at 5,000 in Toronto. So, but to them, that was like the sky was falling, right? So that's what I'm seeing. And then there's some places, there's not really that much COVID. And they're like, we've been open and, like we're still distancing, but, our city has a problem. It's like, they hopefully they get a handle on it, they just got to move vaccine supplies, so hopefully they get a handle on it. So how can people find you, Stefan? So where can they find you and how can they connect with you? Absolutely. So you guys can find me on LinkedIn. So it's just like Stephen Thomas LinkedIn, Instagram, Stephen Thomas Cree, or haloadvisory.ca.
You can find us and the whole team. So again, like we've got a team, 75 plus years of commercial banking. We have like commercial underwriters, adjudicators, business credit coach, salespeople, commercial salespeople, real estate specialists at the bank. So we all kind of group together into Halo Advisory, and we help people, now get financing.
Wow. Very interesting. I learned so much from our discussion. Definitely, a business owner, there's a lot of like myself, we have a specialty in our area of business, but we never look at, other areas, so I learned a lot in a real estate, both financial side of things. I would recommend any business leader who's trying to deal with those issues to, reach out to you or have a chat with you and see, there's they need help, or maybe you can offer just a different perspective and help them out somehow.
Absolutely. Our tagline is commercial financing simplified. So that's
beautiful.
what I try to do for business owners. People are passionate about their business, and they're an engineer, they're a doctor, whatever they are. But the financing, they don't teach this stuff in school. So
you don't know that in school.
I've seen a lot of business owners, like brilliant people, like far more intelligent than me, just not be able to get a grasp on, the commercial lending aspect or even the personal lending, because they're experts in their field. So that's really what we're trying to do, is just simplify it, give people their options, demystify it, and get them the results, right, to keep their companies going.
And a lot of people are gonna need your help. As this, we're dealing with a pandemic. When we start going back in office, a lot of people are gonna need your help. They gotta do something in office, right? I know we gotta do something in office. So, what I'm hearing is people need a smaller office but nicer office. That's what I'm hearing from most business leaders saying, hey, I don't need a that big facility anymore. I don't need a 10,000 square feet. I maybe need a 5,000 square feet, but I need a nicer office than before.
Correct. Absolutely. And we finance the leasehold improvements of those. So you don't have to buy the office, right?
Yeah.
You might rent it and you have to do all the renovations. So we do loans for that as well. And we also obviously finance the acquisition of that. Or if you want to acquire a competitor or two companies are merging, right? So these are the things that we help consult on and give advice as to how we can help everyone involved. Or you know what, this is probably something you want to stay away from.
Yeah.
People appreciate that too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Very interesting. So we record this video. I'm going to send that to all our people in our database, and I'll include your contact information below as well. So in a LinkedIn, your account, and also your company and info. So people can reach out to you. They can click a button and simply connect with you and use your help if they need any help.
Yeah, awesome. I'll post this up on our website as well, or on our channel. We'll do a snippet or something and link it back to yours if you'd like, so that we can say, hey, I was with Gurmeet talking about business, and we'll get it out there, spread the word. You guys are doing good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Steven.
All right, Gurmeet, have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.